Hello ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to today's webinar brought to you by Shared Services Link and sponsored by Perceptive Software. I'm very pleased that today we're going to be looking at the Siemens Germany story, in particular how they are elegantly automating 3 billion of their invoices. So my name is Susie West and I am your host for today, and as many of you know, I'm the founder and CEO at Shared Services Link. And our guest speakers for today are Karin Springer, who is Process Manager Accounts Payable at Shared Services Siemens AG, and Tim Hood, who is EMEA Senior Account Executive at Perceptive Software. So it's really Karin and Tim who are going to be drawing on their experience and sharing their story with you today. As you well know and are probably very familiar with, you have a key role to play in the next 60 minutes and making sure that the next 60 minutes really does serve you. And what I mean by that is if you have questions to ask, which I'm absolutely sure you will have, please make sure that you put those to me via the red box which I've highlighted here. You've got a box like that on your screen right now. Submit those questions to me nice and early, please. The sooner you get them, the more chance you'll have that I put those to the actual speakers, and then I'll be taking those questions and putting those to the speakers in the last 10 minutes of this webinar. So do make sure that you stay on the webinar right to the last minute, please. It's great content right up until the last second. So let's have a look at what that content might look like in terms of the context for this conversation today. Many shared services organisations represent very, very complex organisations, and one reason for that is because shared services is very much applicable to companies that have scale, so multiple business lines, scores if not hundreds of company codes, millions of invoices in many cases, certainly hundreds of thousands of invoices, and tens of thousands of suppliers, if not sometimes hundreds of thousands suppliers. So for organisations that are large volume organisations that have this complex organisation supporting the business, just the very intent to automate the invoice can actually seem particularly daunting. It's a very complex process in its own right, and then there are lots of other complications around it that need to be appreciated and respected when moving from a manual process to really endeavouring to get rid of the touch points completely. So that's one thing that we're going to be looking at in particular when looking at the Siemens story, because Siemens is, as you well know, it's a very complex organisation in terms of multiple business lines. Karen's going to share with you, but I think they're in the region of about 90 company codes, obviously 3 million invoices, and over 40,000 suppliers that they've got in this particular project. So she's going to be talking you through how they're overcoming some of the challenges that they've been seeing over the past few months. Also, just bearing in mind the context is that a lot of shared services organisations are looking to move to global business services. And really, in order to make that step in an elegant fashion, streamlining and automating your purchase-to-pay process is imperative. It's not a nice-to-have, it's a must-have if you want to make that segue elegantly. So with all of that in mind, I would now like to introduce our first presenter, please. That's Tim Hood from Perceptive Software, talking about the Siemens story. Over to you, please, Tim.
Thank you very much, Susie. I would like to add my welcome to everyone on the call and welcome you to the discussion today. As Susie mentioned, I'm a Senior Account Executive at Perceptive Software, and I'm fortunate enough to count Siemens as one of my customers. So what I'd like to do is really start talking a little bit about the common challenges that we see when we start working with our customers. Many of our customers experience common challenges when looking at their core application environments from a visibility and control standpoint. Clearly, the organisations we work with have invested substantial time, money and resources in these core applications. And throughout our experience, we tend to see two major areas where there still is potential for improving. The first area is that of the processes. We understand that your core systems already handle many of the critical business processes automatically, and that you've leveraged it to automate many of the workflow steps that used to be manual within your organization. However, we also know that there are many common process gaps, areas that your ERP system doesn't fully manage. In fact, many analysts say that as much as 70% of the process steps are still manual. The other key area is that of content. Your systems obviously excel at managing database-oriented information. In fact, data management was likely a reason for deploying the system in the first place. Yet it's widely cited that as much as 80% of business information remains unstructured. What does that mean? That means it's outside of the control of core business systems. The content could be stored on paper documents on someone's desk, it could be in presentations, it could be stored as email somewhere, all increasingly scattered across multiple silos, hard drives, servers, intranets, mobile devices, and increasingly now, even the cloud. So I think the challenge is here that there's limited access to the content that you need and limited control over key business processes that drive the information from the transactions coming into your organizations into those back office systems. And this results in a lack of visibility that prevents your organization or slows down the ability to make fully informed business decisions at the moment that you absolutely need to. What this also means is that the greatest potential for cost saving, the benefit, often lies outside of the managed environment, outside of the core application that you've invested the time, the resources, and the money in to develop. It's the manual processes that feed that information through to the system and all of the unmanaged content around it that create the greatest inefficiencies within the organization. And this area also contains the greatest lack, because a lack of visibility naturally results in a lack of internal controls. Now, in a perfect world, you'll be able to expand your core business applications to quickly adapt to all of the needs of your businesses. And additionally, in a perfect world, I think we'd all agree we'd like to have unlimited talent, time, and finances to make that a reality and to make that work. And I guess in a perfect world, you'd only have to ever have one system in the entire enterprise to think about and to manage all the processes, content that drive your key business processes. Unfortunately, very few of us, if any, absolutely live in a perfect world. And there's some research that illustrates this point very clearly. I was working with Forrester, and they recently conducted a survey of business process professionals. And 79% of those surveys said that the inflexibility of their existing enterprise systems was still their biggest challenge. Another survey in the US of around 300 IT decision makers found, and I find this stat quite amazing, that 99% of respondents still spend what they class as a considerable amount of time on those manual business processes. So the picture that these people have of the way the processes and information is managed within their organization is still essentially constrained. What we want to do is look at broadening that view, freeing up the potential of your existing applications to expand the boundaries of your managed environment. And that's really what we look to do at Perceptive. We want to be able to work with our customers to be able to add value to their existing solution, to optimize their processes and content within a unified view, which ultimately, and most importantly, allows organizations to achieve improved financial performance, eliminates risk, and provides the flexibility to adapt for future growth. And really that's what we look to do at Perceptive Software. We want to fill in some of those missing gaps to work with your existing system. We want to understand your existing processes. We want to explain where we can deliver value, and we want to augment and complement your existing solutions. And that tied in very, very well with the objectives that Siemens had when we first started speaking with them. And clearly the presentation today is about the elegant automation of 3 million invoices in Germany. And what they wanted to do was obviously reduce invoice processing costs, reduce invoice processing time, and consolidate their processes and platforms to ensure they had a scalable platform to roll out to all of their internal customers from the Global Shared Services team. And Siemens had an existing solution. What we were looking to do with Siemens was to identify areas where we believed there were differences in the way that our approach would work to help them reach those key objectives. Now, as I mentioned, Siemens are looking at the processing of 3 million invoices in Germany alone. What I'd like to do now is hand over to Susie for the first poll question to see how that fits in with your particular experiences.
Thank you very much, Tim. So coming up on your screen right now, what volume of invoices do you currently process? Is it 50,000 per annum or less? Just over 50,000 to 250,000 invoices per annum, $250,000 to $500,000 invoices, $500,000 to $1 million invoices, or do you process 1 million invoices or more per annum? We like to get responses up to around 70%, so we're only currently on 31%, so if you haven't already responded, please do so, just so everyone's familiar with how the polls work, if this is indeed your first time. We've got 4 polls today, and we do ask for everyone to participate in the polls, please. And we do share the information right after the poll, so it's a very, very useful tool for benchmarking purposes. Still on only 47%, so if you haven't already responded, please do so. What volume of invoices do you currently process? These really relate to your accounts payable invoices coming into your accounts payable organization each year. Is it 50,000 or less, 50 to 250,000, $250,000 to $500,000, $500,000 to $1 million, or 1 million invoices per annum or more? Please do tick the box according to your own situation. Closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. I'm afraid we were only at 51% responding there, so please make sure that you do respond next time. Coming up on your screen. So that's kind of, I suppose, a U shape, which is quite interesting, because normally we have a kind of like a bell shape, bell curve going on there. So we've got 32% of respondents under 50,000. So I guess it's a third, so 32%, and we've got 29% of you with 1 million invoices or more, so really in the kind of the Siemens league in terms of invoice volume. So interesting results. Back to you, please, Tim.
Thank you very much indeed, Susie. I think, importantly, as well as looking at the volume of invoices that are processed, it's also important to look at how many of those invoices are paper-based. Because clearly that's the part where often the highest level of effort is required. Now, interestingly, I'm sure we've all heard about the paperless office and the paperless world, but is it truly a reality? Well, if you look at the IFO AP automation study from 2013, it would suggest that it isn't a reality, because as you can see on your screen in front of you, 71% of organizations say that at least half of their invoices are paper-based. So they clearly haven't reached the levels of electronic penetration that have been hoped for. And now that we know what your invoice volumes are like, I'd like to hand back over to Susie to again see how that fits in with your experiences for the second poll question.
Thank you, Tim. Coming up on your screen, second poll question, ladies and gentlemen. What percentage of your invoices are paper-based today? Is it more than 75%, 51 to 75%, 26 to 50%, 11 to 25%, or less than 10% of your invoices are paper-based today? So currently at 39% of you responding. Again, this is really useful for benchmarking, so if you can, please tick the box that relates to your own situation. We do like to get up to about 70%. We're still at the 50% marker, so if you haven't responded, please do so. Closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. So let's have a look at the results. Coming up on your screen now, we're at 54% of you responding. Congratulations to the 3% who are coming in at less than 10% being paper today. So congratulations to you. But probably not surprising that the lion's share of people responding are at 54%. 54% of you, I beg your pardon, are at more than 75% paper-based. So interesting results. Back to you, please, Tim.
Thank you very much, Susie. And the reason that the paper-based invoices are often difficult to process is there's a number of problems that are inherent in processing those documents. And the stats here that you see on the screen come from the 2012 Aberdeen Group report. And clearly, some of the challenges here that are listed on the presentation tie in very well with those that are Siemens core objectives. Clearly, the directive to lower costs is still something that is increasingly important. We're often working with organizations now where they're going through the second or third generation of projects, particularly looking at how they can reduce the issues that they see. So clearly cost is one. Also visibility is a key issue that we see in the marketplace more and more. If you've got a large volume of invoices coming in paper, they're tough to process. It's tough to lift that data effectively. So when it comes to accruals reporting and cash management, it's often difficult to be able to effectively achieve that with right up to the minute data if you've still got challenges with getting those the information from those documents and the complete data sets from those invoices into your core applications. And clearly managing and finding those paper-based documents, making sure you know exactly where they are, they're in that structured, controlled environment of storage that we mentioned at the start of the presentation is key as well. Now, if we look at the problems with the paper, to manage to address some of those, I think one of the important things is obviously looking at the scanning rates, looking at how invoices are, you're capturing the scanned images of those documents. This is a slide from the 2013 Paperless Office Maturity Model Survey. And I think what surprised me about this is that I'd expected many more organizations to be further along what we call the maturity curve when it comes to the front-end scanning. You can see that there's still a number of people who aren't scanning their documents at the back end, or late archiving as we also sometimes call it. But clearly, if you want to be able to deliver true automation in the way that Siemens are looking to achieve, what you need to do is you need to have those invoices scanned up front to make sure that you can actually get the data from them in the first place. And you can see here that over 25% of organizations still aren't scanning those paper invoices on the front end. And that really is a key driver that restricts the ability of any solution downstream to be able to process that document effectively and lift the information for the automation purposes. When I started working with Siemens, they already had a front-end data capture solution, so it was a good starting point to be able to further automate the information coming into their organization. And with that, what I'd like to do is, again, hand back over to Susie to see how many of the organizations that are on the call with us today are looking at front-end scanning solutions at the moment. So Susie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tim. So does your organization currently use a front-end scanning solution? Yes, you do. No, but planning to implement one within 6 months. No, but planning to implement within the next 7 to 12 months, or no, planning to implement in the next 13 to 24 months, or maybe you don't have one in place and don't have any plans to put one in place for the time being. Only 45% of you have responded. As I mentioned, we do like to get these numbers up to about 70%. So if you haven't already responded, please do so. Closing the poll, ladies and gentlemen, in 3, 2, 1. Let's see what the adoption rate looks like here, coming up on your screen. So encouragingly, you can see that 68% of those that responded do actually have a front-end scanning solution in place. So a positive result there. And interestingly, 11% of you do not and have no plans to. So interesting results. Back to you, please, Tim.
Thank you very much, Susie. And I think, again, encouragingly, as you mentioned, on this particular call, it's obvious that a lot more of the people have adopted the front-end scanning that can help to drive that downstream automation. Being on the particular the stats that we see in front of us now. So I think that gives us a little bit of information about your particular environment, and also hopefully explains some of the trends that we're seeing in the current marketplace. What I'd like to do now, it gives me great pleasure to be able to hand over to Karin Springer from Siemens. Karin's the AP Process Manager for Siemens and has been involved in the project with Perceptive Intelligent Capture from the starting point. And I think there's no doubt that it's always better to hear from a customer using the technology than from myself. So Karin, with that, it's over to you.
Hello and welcome to everyone on the call. I would like to start my presentation by introducing you to Siemens as a company and going then into more detail of the organization of our Global Shared Services before coming then really to the interesting part on the implementation of the Perceptive Capture tool, software tool, which enabled us to automate a lot of our invoices process. So Siemens was founded about 155 years ago by Werner von Siemens and was concentrating very much on the electric revolution in the 19th century. We grew all during history and have at the moment 410,000 employees, a turnover in excess of 70 billion euros, and are represented in more than 180 countries worldwide. We have 4 business sectors with more than 400 separate legal entities. If we look at the Siemens organizational chart, we see that we have a matrix organization. We have on the vertical side our sectors, industry, with drive technology and automation technology, metals, and customer service. We also have the energy sector, which concentrates on power production of any kind, such as fossil, wind, solar and hydro, oil and gas, and also power transmission. We have the healthcare sector, doing anything on the technical side for hospitals and doctors, clinical products, diagnostics. And we have infrastructure in cities, where we concentrate on trains, mobility, logistics, but also building technology and rail systems. Also Osram, with its light bulbs, is part of this sector. Then we have, of course, as any corporate has its corporate functions of various kinds, and then we have the cross-sector businesses, service and financial services, and cross-sector services. Among those, we find global shared services. And we have then on the local organization regional clusters. So the world is divided here into the Americas with its clusters, Asia, Australia, and EMEA. If we have a closer look at the Siemens Global Shared Services now, we also have here a structure of business lines and service portfolio. Accounting and finance is a major part of Global Shared Services. We offer accounting and finance services for all our business units worldwide. It's a mandatory service at Siemens, so we really have all the business units in our care and offer transactional services for accounts payable, accounts receivable, general ledger closing and reporting, and local products. Besides accounting and finance, we also have HR services in our portfolio, supply chain management services, and business solution services. So on the HR side, also taking care of all the general topics like talent acquisition, HR performance reporting, organizational and employee development, compensation and benefits. Supply chain management, here we support our supply chain management in the sectors by providing logistics services, catalog management, PO processing and clearing, and so forth. The major facts on global shared services: we have back office and transactional processing services. We employ more than 6,000 people worldwide, and we have more than 10 regional delivery centers across 4 continents. We are serving more than 90 company codes in Germany alone, so these are not really legal entities, but balancing entities in our corporation, with a lot of different SAP systems and different processes which have grown historically in the last 20 years when accounting departments were decentralized, and then again centralized by transferring them to global shared services. We are an internal service provider for all the business sectors and divisions. So if we look at our global footprint, the distribution of our shared service centers, so we have local centers which are really very strategically selected. On the other hand, we also have historically grown competence centers, which are also on the map and formed together with the low-cost centers, very specific footprint. So we are serving Northwest Europe, Central Eastern Europe, Russia, and Germany out of the Czech Republic, where we have 2 locations, one in Prague and one in Ostrava. We have a center in India where we do all the back office services worldwide, and especially serve the English-speaking world, so USA and the UK. And also Asia, where we have certain higher cost, let's say, know-how centers in Singapore, in the UK, and also in the US in Florida. Latin America is served out of Buenos Aires, but we also have a site in Brazil, and we serve China out of China. I think that's obvious. And for Southwest Europe, we have a center in Lisbon, which is serving Southwest Europe and parts of Africa. So coming now to the central story of today, the automation of 3 million German invoices. Where we started from is a very differentiated and various processes all over our sectors and business lines. So we had upfront scanning everywhere. This is the only common thing we had. Then we had different processes for scanning and OCR. So mainly differently customized solutions which read out only header data of the invoices, some more or less well maintained. So the rather old-fashioned OCR systems all worked with templates. So whenever a supplier changed, you had to set up his template, or whenever he changed his logo or his setup of invoices, then you had to adapt your system. And with the handover into shared services, the OCR task remained with the sectors, but there was neither real interest nor resources for this task, so it was a rather neglected topic. Then the data came into SAP, where our centers had to take over, and to start with the verification task, to start checking legal invoice requirements, rejecting legally invalid invoices, all this was, and then posting the invoice. So this was done by one team. It was rather difficult to distribute tasks according to the capabilities of the employees. So not a really transparent and handy process. This is leads us to the main drivers why we were looking for a solution to the situation. So we were looking for an OCR tool which could get us rid of the template maintenance and administration. We have a lot of vendors, 45,000 vendors in scope in the different systems. So it's rather hard to maintain this thing. Also, the manual document pre-sorting is a topic. We wanted to switch to a service provider, so the more complex this process is, the more difficult it gets. So if you think we have, for example, in our sector industry, one address for invoices, but 25 SAP systems, which then have to get the right invoice. So if you give this to a service provider and let him manually sort out the papers, I think it will take you months on end until this process really works. And it's really would be very vulnerable to do it like this. So automation of this process was really key. Then the line level reconciliation was always for us a big hurdle in all our automation efforts. So even if you get electronic data, electronic invoices into your system, and the line levels do not correspond with the PO, then automatically the invoice gets stopped, has to be handled manually. This is something we also wanted to tackle and where we were looking for a solution. This leads to our low automated posting rates. So this mostly comes out of the PO quality, but also of the discipline of our suppliers to invoice according to our POs, which is also varies very much according also to the business model. So if you deliver a whole power plant, it's very difficult really to have the purchase order set up in a way that the invoices are corresponding. There is a lot of, this also all increased our processing costs, and also the processing time, which leads to urgent payment request handling. And we also lacked the end-to-end visibility, process visibility. So really knowing right from the start when the invoices get into our system, from arriving at the site until we really saw them and could handle them. This was a very dark spot for us. We had no compliant solution for email PDF. This is a topic which became very current now in 2013. As in the European Union, it's possible to send emails via email as PDF attachments, and this was really a big request of our suppliers. And as a as a company which has a certain focus on technology, it would be really a shame not to be able to offer a solution on the one hand. On the other hand, we are too big to afford any mistakes in the processing of such invoices. So we have to really take care on the right way of getting them into our archive, so without any interruption in the medium. So it's not possible in Germany to print out an email, PDF, and then scan it in. This would violate the archiving regulations. Also the topic then of handling the whole thing in a feasible way. If you think of the biggest threat for our accounting departments was that anybody at Siemens with a Siemens email address might receive invoices which are then crisscross the whole organization by forwarding and at some point get into the accounting. In Germany, we process about 3 million invoices per year, but with approximately 50 SAP systems. So what we needed was really something we could put in front of these back-end systems and try to harmonize the process we have in focus here as much as possible. Also, VAT compliance is an important topic. So this was a very manual process, as I said, and also for some accountants, rather a tricky one, really, to analyze the invoices after all the 14 criteria of this German tax law and to judge this correctly. So out of these drivers, the main issues result. We had various scanning solutions in the sectors with different setups and different levels of automation and also different levels of maintenance. We had hardware servers for each solution, so quite a lot of costs also in this connection. We had thousands of OCR templates created in each solution for mainly the same vendors, and also they had to be maintained. And the insufficient line extraction led to purchasing requirements on at least possible PO lines. So we were not, and we could not qualify the purchasing based on vendor catalog per invoice. Then we had missing extraction of fields like delivery date with the consequence that the VAT compliance check needed to be done manually. We were not able to automate this. And we were also missing the full picture because of missing transparency. This was really a process step we wanted to take into our charge. And when we had the first glance of what the solution could look like, it was still quite a way to go. And just to show you shortly the steps how we got there. We identified the potential benefits at the beginning. So we thought, when we heard of perceptive software and the advantages it could bring, we thought what we would have to do in the whole process to realize this. Perceptive supported us with proofs of concept for various business units so that we could really analyze the different types of invoices and get then to a comprehensive business case, which was reviewed thoroughly together with our customers, who had, of course, to give their consent. We also had to find solutions for transferring their current scanning solution to our centers and to our third-party provider, and who really were very supportive in this respect. We had then, in the end, a well-specified project scope, which covered all the peculiarities of our different sectors, and started a very close collaboration with Perceptive Software to develop the features we needed. So it took us about 90 days until we could go live with the first customer. So we signed the contract with Perceptive last year in September, went live then in February with the first customers. These were our sectors energy, or part of it at least, and our corporate units, corporate functions. And we had then really tough rollouts in rolling out more than 2 million already until July with our sectors energy and industry. We then tackled the problem of freight invoices, which is again a very special process at Siemens, outsourced to supply chain management services. And we are now approaching the projects with infrastructure and cities. So the last 500,000 of invoices which we take on for Germany. What does our improved process now look like? Where's the difference to what we had before? So the paper documents arrive at our third-party scanning provider, but we also have a direct PDF feed, so we have the possibility to receive invoices via email PDF directly from our suppliers. But we also have the possibility for our customers to send us very urgent invoices, which always come up at the end of a month or end of a fiscal year especially. And with Perceptive software, we also have the possibility to prioritize these documents. We then have an automatic classification and extraction. So classification also in the sense of the fact that we do not receive only invoices, but also other documents such as balance confirmations, standing letters, etc., which are classified correctly in Perceptive and then forwarded to our SAP solutions. For this, we use our internal EDI format. So for our accountants now, there is no difference in the invoice quality and in the invoice format and in the process, whether the basic invoice was a paper invoice or was a PDF invoice or was even an original EDI invoice. We have then been able to reduce our manual posting team considerably. First of all, by taking out the whole verification stuff, so a lot of verification is done automatically, and also this rejection process is completely automated. Our scanning provider receives daily a list with documents which have to be rejected, and he then sends the rejection letters to the suppliers. So the key outcomes of this implementation is the improved process management. We reduce manual data entry, so 93% of 50 data fields we analyze of an invoice are captured accurately and automatically by the system. We have increased automated posting driven by systematic line item extraction and reconciliation. These rates go up to 60% of our invoices which can be posted automatically, depending of course on the invoice quality of our customers. Then the automatic classification and company code identification. This is the example I mentioned already before of our sector industry with having one invoice address and 25 SAP systems. So we have customized the different PO ranges and are able to allocate the invoices to the correct system. We have an improved exception and error reporting. So whenever we have a problem with a certain supplier, we are now really able to say where the problem comes from, and we are able to proactively act on this. Then the consolidated scanning operations brought, of course, a big cost advantage. So for our corporate units, for example, who went live in March, they had a reduction of cost of almost 50% only by being able to join the consolidated scanning operation. So they had a small provider before and switched to this consolidated provider here, which we set up, and the cost reduction was really enormous. And then, of course, the increased PDF usage and efficiency, which helps us to speed up the process and to offer a technically up-to-date solution also to our suppliers. Coming to the major benefits. We have now one shared verify team processing all invoices for all approximately 50 SAP systems. So this gives us a certain flexibility, especially as the number of people sitting there is rather big. So we employ only part-time employees in this field. who work about 4 hours, maximum 4 hours per day, because we see that this is the time one can concentrate on this kind of task. This group is completely customer independent. Even if we implemented a lot of different processes for different business types and invoice types, all the intelligence is customized in the system, and for the verifier, it's always the same task, comparing the PDF with the information on the screen and confirming or changing it wherever it is necessary. Then we have the possibility to use the web verifier for additional verifier personnel. So if we have peaks on month end or at year's end, it's very difficult. It's very easy, sorry, to increase the personnel and the number of people working on the tool. We have an easy exception handling process. So there are always special topics where people are not sure what has to happen with certain invoices. These can be easily forwarded to a super verifier who handles them, and they can be also automatically allocated whenever necessary. We have one hardware setup for all the sectors, which brought us a lot of synergy in the costs there. And we have full transparency from scanning to posting in the SAP AP environment. So we really can see when an invoice was scanned, when it was handed over to Perceptive, how long it took us to do the verification when we handed it over then to SAP. We have a vendor and field level extraction reporting. So these are the important steps: vendor determination and also the line item determination, where we can exactly see what has happened, where problems lie, and what has to be done. We have harmonized processes for all business needs and also a harmonized PDF solution. We have an urgent payment process with invoice process within minutes during business hours. So invoices which are urgent come in via this urgent PDF channel. They are then prioritized in the system, so the verifier has them immediately on top of his list and takes them as the next possible invoice to verify. Then an archiving solution of additional documents is also included in this solution, so to say, because as we are able now to process also all other invoice-related documents and pass them on to SAP and the workflow in use, we have the possibility to archive them and also allocate them to the basic invoice case. So after achieving this in the last 3/4 of a year or in the last year, what are we going to do next? So first of all, as I mentioned, we want to finish our rollout in Germany. Then we will have a structured evaluation for additional territory deployments. So we had a look already at India, which would be a very interesting candidate. Main criteria are here the invoice volume, the quality of the purchase orders, and also the flexibility, of course, of the system, which is rather great with regards to languages and also types of script. Then we, of course, have to optimize the system performance and work on this on a continual basis. And we also have to analyze the potential for additional document types. So we have already a big interest here in the scanning of sales orders, but also in the scanning of purchasing orders, which all show the same characteristics. So you get in a document which has to be compared with some data you already have in the system, and then some steps in SAP have to be triggered. Archiving and other processing steps, and this type of process is genuinely suited for Perceptive. So to conclude my presentation, what were the main points which were important for our automation success? We found a solution which can extract data without templates and recognize context through fuzzy logic. So we really have a tool which replaces the eyes of the human. We incorporated this value-add information into our end-to-end process and used it as a basis for automation. So here, what we did here really was to analyze in detail what we can do in our workflow systems, which information do we need in the invoice format to trigger automated workflows, to trigger and to post automatically and wherever it is possible. We checked our expectations with different invoice types and made proofs of concept with perceptive software for various business units. And we calculated successful business cases for accounting only, so that the whole project did not become over complex by involving the whole P2P chain, which, especially in a complex organization at Siemens, may put projects to a hold for months on end. And we implemented our rollout with a compact and stable team on Siemens and Perceptive's side, and we succeeded on time. So this was my presentation, and I hand over now to Tim for a summary.
Okay, Karin, well, thank you very much indeed. I'm sure all of the people joining us on the call found that as interesting as I did. And I think, to echo a couple of the points that Karin made around what our customers are looking for when we work with them, they want a solution provider and a partner. It isn't about being a software vendor, it's about working with organizations to understand how we can deliver value. And it's very important to make sure we have a realistic and validated business case about the potential benefits, and that's something we've worked very closely with Siemens on. It's also important to make sure that we can give proof points where necessary that the technology will actually deliver what we say it will do. And that's very much the proof of concept approach that we took with Siemens, and Karin mentioned we did that with several of the business units within Siemens. And clearly, perhaps one of the most important, or the most important, is on time and on budget project delivery. And I'm very pleased to say that working together with Karin's team, that was something we managed to achieve at Siemens. And I think most importantly, what they were looking for was technology that can deliver, true automation, trying to move things to the next level of automation to really deliver the benefits. And what do we mean by automation? If we look at the electronic posting stats coming up from Gartner, that shows what we're classing as true automation. And what this shows is that best-in-class companies are electronically posting 70% plus of their invoices without manual intervention. But interestingly, if you look at the results from the survey of the customers involved, you'll see that 61% of those companies that were surveyed still are achieving 0% straight-through processing or electronic posting with no manual intervention. So clearly there's a lot of organizations where there's a lot of work to do. And the types of organizations that we work with, that's what they're really looking for, the automation. And we like to think we have a certain degree of industry expertise in this end, and we're not delivering this solution just to Siemens, but a range of global organizations. And many of the organizations here went through the same process that Karin mentioned, close business case evaluation, looking at a proof of concept to prove that the technology could deliver exactly what was required, and then going through a partnership to work closely with us to make sure that we could deliver the solution that we were looking for. Just to give you an example of one more of our customers, we've got some accounts payable statistics here from another one of the organizations that we work with. And what this shows really is that it was a journey for them. It wasn't just a one-stop shop. They went through a journey looking at a combination of intelligent capture, moving people to EDI where possible, looking at ERS, various different options. I think if we look at the headcount reduction here, we can see that from May 2004 when they started through to May 2013 when they did the last review, the headcount involved has dropped significantly. From 105 down to 52 people. And again, this is a combination of different projects, but it shows the journey they were going through. Also, the defect rates dropped, although stayed relatively constant. Just to give you some perspective on what this means, when they're talking about defect rates, that's the number of documents that have to be processed or touched manually. And a 1% drop is the equivalent of about 50,000 less transactions that have to be handled manually. And you can see that when they went live with the perceptive capture solution in May 2011, there was a step change reduction over the next 2 years of the number of documents that went through without the defect rates as they class them. And just to show the progress that they've had since go live with the Perceptive Intelligent Capture solution, we have another graph showing you that whilst the paper volume has stayed consistent throughout, since the deployment of the solution in around sort of May 2011, the number of documents that had to be manually posted has significantly decreased, and it's very much an ongoing basis to make sure that we keep delivering those performance enhancements to them. I mentioned that they significantly reduced their headcount in their particular shared services operation. What I'd like to do now is hand over to Susie to see how that translates to people on the call with us today. Susie, over to you.
Thank you very much. Tim, so coming up on your screen now, how many people are involved in AP processing in your shared services organization? Maybe you don't have shared services just now, or you're thinking about it but haven't quite got there. Is it less than 50 people, 51 to 150, 151 to 500 people, or 501 people in your shared services organization involved in AP, or more? We're only at 31%, so if you haven't already responded, please do so. Closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Let's have a look at the results. We're at 42% of you responding. So coming up on your screen now, you can see that 30% of you don't have shared services or planning to move there at some stage, and 33% less than 50, and the other third, I suppose, have 51 or more in people in their shared services. Back to you, please, Tim.
Thank you very much indeed, Susie. So I think if we look at how we try and deliver success with our customers, how we try and work with them, there's a few key points that very much sort of trying back to the discussions that we had with Karin. We want to understand the processes and objectives that an organization has. And clearly, in order to automate the process, we need to make sure that the data extracted is done so upfront and effectively. So as Karin mentioned, we're looking at 93% of 50 fields per invoice being extracted automatically at the moment. Also, there needs to be a focus on reconciling and validating that data. Again, Karin mentioned the line-level automation, not only to be able to extract those lines automatically, but be able to make them useful for the system into which we're putting the information to send it as a complete data set. And it very much is about a partnership and continuous improvement, working together as the two organizations very closely to achieve the objectives set out. So I think the summary, the journey that Siemens went through and that we went with them, paperless accounts payable it's a journey. It's not a destination. You're not going to start on Monday and end on Tuesday. It's something that has to be an ongoing review and an ongoing process. And despite the fact we hear frequently about the paperless office, I think it's still fair to say, and the results earlier on bear this out, that paper is still a fact of business for many, many AP organizations. But if you can reduce the focus on the individual transactions, less of the manual data capture, manual validation, and manual reconciliation, you can really focus on the value that you can deliver in the end-to-end process. And I think, perhaps most importantly, to get somewhere, you need to know where you are to start with and to plot that journey through and how you want to achieve that. And that's really what we saw with Siemens. They understood there was areas for improvement, and they had a very clear vision and idea about how to reach that. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for your time. That concludes my part of the presentation. What I'd like to do now is hand over to Susie to look at any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Karin and Tim. We have a lot of questions. So Karin and Tim, if I can ask for relatively concise responses, please. Tim, first question for you. A particular viewer only has 13,000 invoices per annum. Is it worth looking at a solution like Perceptive in their situation?
Yeah, we certainly like to think that the invoices are very, very scalable. Clearly, the larger the operation, the greater the potential for benefits. But we treat each case on an individual basis because it isn't just the volume of invoices, it's the work that goes into them, it's how easy it is to configure the system. So it's absolutely something that we'd encourage people to look at on a case-by-case basis.
Okay,
Susie,
question for you, Karin. Thank you very much, Tim. Question for you, please, Karin. Why in particular did you focus on Germany and not globally?
For us, as we have this system landscape and our systems are mainly have their home base in Germany, we tried to have the biggest volume in our first implementation, because then we have covered the most significant customizing we need, and it's easier then to roll it out and show also successful business cases for smaller units.
Okay. Karin, are you doing any electronic invoicing or EDI right now? And if so, what percentage, one viewer is asking?
This is varies regionally. So internally, all our invoice traffic is via EDI. So this makes about 60% of our invoices within 60% of our total invoice volume. We have, for example, in the US 80% e-invoicing coverage. We have in Germany about 20%. So it varies a lot locally.
Okay, and can that electronic file come into the Perceptive software, that kind of cockpit, if you will?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and obviously follow the same process. I've got a viewer here saying, can you please elaborate on template management? How has it actually improved?
So there is no template management anymore. That's the major improvement. We do not have to tell the tool which customers we have and where, for example, a certain customer writes his invoice date or writes his total invoice sum and whatever. The advantage is that Brainware really looks at the data, reads out all the data there is on the invoice, and then applies its logic to find the fields we need. So this is why why it was possible to set up proofs of concept. We just took Perceptive as it was as a tool and fed it with our invoices, and immediately we saw what the system was able to capture.
Karin, also, you've answered the question, but I'm just going to repeat it. This viewer is wanting to know what you use for archiving, but that's also the Perceptive software tool, isn't it?
No, archiving takes place then in SAP, and we are currently using Superion.
Okay, fine. Another viewer is asking for more information on how PO line items are better matched with invoices. Is that how is that kind of fuzzy logic set up?
Yeah, the important thing is when you get an invoice, you often have split invoices, for example, that it takes only part of the PO line, or that it takes certain texts are important, and Perceptive is able to combine this information. So it makes a calculation out of the amount you have here, the price information, but also the text information you have. It looks among the different PO line items. So if you have an invoice position number 1 reflects PO line item position number 10. This is also handled by Perceptive, and the advantage is that it puts then the electronic format which we send into our SAP systems in such a way that it already corresponds with the PO as far as possible.
Okay, thank you. Also, Karin, for you, what's been the impact so far? I mean, I know you're relatively early on the journey, but what's the impact been on productivity?
So we have a reduction of AP personnel of about 40%, but we also have to take into consideration that we still have some verification staff, a little bit more, because we are still on the optimization path of our journey. So the overall savings are about 30%.
Okay, thank you. A few more questions and only a few more minutes. So let me come down to this question here. Impressive case that's been provided, and maybe this is one for you, Tim. How does the Perceptive software work with kind of free format, that is unstructured documents? For example, customer questions, complaints, etc.
Well, I think, Susie, fundamentally the way that the solution works is different to many others in the same marketplace, that we're very strong looking at semi-structured and unstructured data, because we're looking at the content and the context of all the data available on a particular document, rather than looking for a single identifier and then building templates with locations. So we're very good at being able to classify and extract data from totally unstructured documents to be able to process them effectively, because we don't have that sort of high level of setup at the front end with keywords and recognition, templates and so forth. We're looking at content and context, which really helps us to deliver the right data in the right format as effectively as possible.
Okay. I've had a lot of questions from people, and a lot will remain unanswered right now, but I'd like to ask Tim to follow up on any unanswered questions. But just to bundle up probably 5 or 6 questions, Karin, could you just summarize maybe in 2 or 3 points? We heard your requirements, but why was it in particular you went for Perceptive over and above other providers out there?
So it was mainly because of this, of the fact that we did not have any necessity to maintain any templates. This was one point, and the other point was that we are not aware of any system which is so capable of capturing line item data and matching it to the PO data. So this was really a big advantage of the system compared to other systems on the market.
Okay, I appreciate that summary. Tim Hood and Karin Springer, thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to bring your attention to a number of events that we've got coming up. 2 of those are nearly sold out. That's the one in October, one in November. And also do make sure that you sign up for the next 3 webinars that we've got coming up. And in the time being, good luck with all your initiatives, and we look forward to welcoming you next time. Goodbye.